How you guys doing? Back with another video. Have a John Deere demo today. It's a Z930m, as you can see. It's got a FX 801V Kawasaki. Here's my mower. This is the mower I actually own. It's a Toro 6000 series. It's got a 31 horse Kawasaki. It's a 921V. And I got to cut for probably an hour and a half today. It's a nice machine. I'm gonna do a quick video on the comparisons between the two and why I'm happy I went with the Toro. I mean, I would happily own this machine. I would no issues. But if I have the option, I'd definitely go with the Toro again. So starting out the front, this machine, as you can see, has a very unique looking frame. Looks like an I-beam. The thing about this is, this frame is very sturdy in the front, but that's just an extension. The actual frame itself is just this very wide piece of just thick, kind of bended steel. Not tubular at all, and I'm not very happy with it. I definitely feel like when I'm going over bumps, it's not as sturdy as what I'm used to in the Toro or the old Sky I used to own. It has a 7-iron Pro deck, 60-inch. Both 60-inch mowers. This is a stamped 7-gauge steel deck, very heavy duty. You can see it's got a big wear bar in the front. It's very similar looking to the Toro Turbo Force deck. Very comparable in size. It's got a nice suspension seat on it, similar to the Toro's, a little different design. The Toro, I think, has more cushion. Nicer armrests. The suspension seats themselves are pretty similar. However, the Toro definitely wins in comfort because of, as you can see right here, those rubber ISO points. The John Deere does not have them. Non-existent. That makes a big difference going over little bumps. You don't really feel them nearly as much in the Toro. The other difference is the John Deere has cast aluminum spindles, and they're greasable. I think they're around 8-inch spindles, maybe more. Toro is cast iron, and they're sealed. It's a little bit different. Sealed versus greased, I personally prefer sealed, and I think the argument for grease, maybe they're more durable, but I feel they last around the same and just less maintenance with the sealed. So I personally prefer from the sealed, but people have their own opinions. Mower itself dries nice. It's a very, very soft machine. And what I mean by that is it takes very little pressure to get put the machine through its paces. Very, very little push on the sticks will push it forward very far, whereas the Toro is a little stiffer. It's still a soft driving mower, it's just stiffer than the John Deere. In terms of engine, very comparable. Both Kawasaki's. The Toro just has a bigger Kawasaki. One thing I want you to notice about these machines, I've got a side shot here, is the center of gravity. If you look at, you can see, if I line it up completely, you can see a lot of the John Deere behind the Toro. That's because the Toro is incredibly low to the ground. With this engine turned this way, one, it helps in maintenance, makes it easy to access the oil filter, oil drain. It also lowers the center of gravity. As you can see, the bumper, space between the ground and the bumper on the John Deere as compared to the Toro, Toro has a lot less space because the engine's so much lower. That really helps on hillsides. Not only that, the Toro also has a fuel tank beneath the seat, which helps 3 ways. One, you have these very nice compartments you can use. I have some gloves in there. I usually put my phone and wallet so I don't lose anything. Number 2, it helps to lower center of gravity. And number 3, you don't have to worry about rubbing against sticks. As I was saying, you don't have to worry about rubbing against tree branches, thorn bushes, and potentially puncturing the tank, whereas the Deere with the one saddle tank on the side, the big saddle tank, you have to be worried about brushing, especially with it being on the trim side. It would have been smart if they put it on the discharge side, but I mean, you gotta have the fuel tank or the instrument panel, you gotta choose. Another thing is the deck. Both these machines will give you a very, very high quality of cut. Both machines will discharge incredibly well. However, the Toro takes the cake on deck technology for sure. You can tell, you take one pass of both, you can get a person who's not experienced in mowers at all and take a look at it, and you'll 99% of the time will have them say the Toro looks better. Now, I'm not saying the Deere doesn't cut great. It does. It cuts really clean. It does a really nice job cutting, but it gives less of a buzz cut, more of kind of a swath, and it looks as if it cuts it when everything's laying or wherever it's been, you know, the grass is leaning over. I feel like it cuts it and leaves it leaning, or cuts it and leans it, you know, which helps with the striping. The Toro lifts everything up, has it straight up like this, and then cuts it to where it's perfectly smooth and carpet-like, which I personally like the look of more, and it just gives it a nicer finish. But the Deere, because it lays it over, has a better stripe. The Toro leaves it a little more carpet-like cut. Discharge-wise, a lot of people say Deere is really, really good in wet grass, which I haven't tested it out. I'm assuming I'm believing them. However, Toro, a lot of people say will clump. The way to fix that is all you have to do is throttle down the mower, take it from 3600, which is the max throttle, around 3350, and you'll have no clumping at all. And that's why I'm going to give that advantage to the Toro as well. Most people don't know to do that, but if you do, the Toro does not have any issues in wet grass whatsoever. Dry grass, the Toro absolutely outclasses the Deere. It's not even close. But I'm not saying the Deere's bad. The Deere's outclasses almost everything else, just not the Toro. Another thing I don't really like about the Deere is I like the hydros, how they're hoseless. Tough torques, they're very weak. Up hills, you'll notice it struggles to push the machine up the hill. You really notice it's backing up hills. It has a very hard time backing up the hill. Really, really struggles to back up hills. Whereas the Toro has absolutely no problem at all powering up the hill. The problem with the Toro, problem I have with the Toro is the controls for the reverse are very loose, to where I have to really pull it for it to actually kick in the hydros. So I think I'm going to do is there's an adjustment on the Toro where you can actually take the steering dampener and move it up, middle, or down. That adjusts how firm or soft the drive is. So I'm probably going to put it in the softest position so it takes less force to move it, and I'll have a better time backing up, I think. That should really, really help with that aspect. Deere, I do like the reverse, how quickly it engages, but with the steering dampeners being so soft, if you're very bumpy yards, forward movement onto bumps makes your hand move, and that jolts the steering control because it's so soft, and you get a little jolty movements. However, I feel it's very, very easy for me to operate and keep straight and even keel when you have flat ground. I really, really like how it drives. The only issue with the drive is the tough torques are just don't have enough power. The Parker HTG system blows it out of the water. It's not even close. The power difference is ridiculous. I mean, I took the Toro in the same exact spots I took the Deere, and the Deere I couldn't back up. I had to try to do a zero turn out of the area I was in. The Toro, go right in, go right out, no problem. Another thing, because I don't want to just bash the Deere, I like it a lot. These steering controls are awesome. They're nice and fat, and I love this. It's very, very nice. The Toros by no means are skinny, but I do prefer the nice fat ones where my hand, when I grip it, you can see the gap. When I grip this, there's barely a gap, and I don't like touching. I prefer the fat ones. It gives me a little nicer control of this. I do like that a lot about the John Deere. Parking brakes similar. Prefer the Toro. It's a little simpler than the button. I don't really like the button. Stepping on the machine. There's another view of the drive of it. Foot pedal. Here's the adjustment. It's a little dial where you just push it, turn the unlock, drop it down. If you want to adjust, it's very easy to adjust. You just press it up and turn it to wherever you want, drop it down. Very easy to use. Not a big fan of the locking system. I think it's just kind of awkward and cheaply made, not really nice. Instrument panel, you got your throttle, choke, key switch, blade gimbal, international switch. It's not a pull-up button like most of them, like the Toro is. The one thing I noticed with the difference between the Toro and this, and it could just be my dealer setting them up, is Toro's idle is much lower. So when I first got it, I was having issues with it backfiring. I thought it was just because it was Kawasaki, but it's in fact because the idle is really, really low. It's hard for the engine to kind of go from high RPMs to ridiculously low RPMs in just like a second. When I pull it back, I don't realize that. I wasn't used to that with the EFI. I never had any to worry about something like that. So on the Skag, here's the Toro view. Similar system here. I like this locking system more. It's much better built, more ingenuitive, I think. It's easier for me to just push it a little, lock it down. And the nice thing is too, that which we can't do with the Deere, is you have to push all the way up, lock it. This you can flick in the lock and push up, and it clicks into place like that. Here's the Toro instrument panel. This is, I think, much nicer than the Deere. You know, they updated it this year. I have a very late 2017, so it was a better deal. Made more sense, and this is a much more tested, bulletproof design. I've heard some complaints on the new one, the fuel gauge being very, very inaccurate. So I'd rather have the easier to read dial, key switch, throttle, choke, and then here's the button I was talking about that most motors have. As you can see, it's a pretty similar view. The Toro definitely has more out front tires.